Hey friends, I know it's been a little while since I've done a video, almost 2 weeks, but I actually had worked on a video for last week. I was going to do a video of everything that I spent the week. It was actually the week prior. It ended on Monday, Memorial Day. I was going to do through the Sunday before Memorial Day. And when I went back through all the video footage that I had done the week, I was like, that is going to be so boring, because I realized I work, Monday through Friday. I wear scrubs every day, so it looks like I have the same thing on every day. And then it was, so it was like the only thing I was doing was if I got something for breakfast on the way to work or got like a frappe on the way home from work, it just wasn't, I figured that it was just too boring. So I scratched that. So I don't want to put out content that's just completely boring. So that is why it's been a little while since I've done a video. But today I wanted to just put my first child's birth story out there. My little girl, she was born 5 years ago. So I wanted to put that out there. I think not only, for a YouTube channel, but I think it would just be good for later to have that documented for her. Maybe things that I remember right now that maybe years down the road I wouldn't remember. So I think that'd be a good thing to have, as a video for her in the future. If you're new here, my name's Amanda, and I would love if you would subscribe and follow along with us. Had been married, so we got married in 2012, and we decided that when we first got married, we lived in an apartment, and so we decided that we wanted to buy a house before we had our first child. And we were both, I was 25 when we got married, so we knew we couldn't just wait a long time before we started having children, just in case. We didn't know. As far as, with me being already 25 when we got married. So by the time she was born, I was 27. Yeah. I was 27 when she was born. So we bought a house February of 2014. And we ended up having her, we ended up having her in February of 2015. So right at a year. So once we bought the house, we knew we were ready to try, for children. So I actually had a really good pregnancy all together. The first, I would say, I might have had a few days of a little nausea, but honestly, it was great. And I was thinking, wow, look at me, I'm so good at this. No, it was just, I knew that I was blessed because we had several at our church that were pregnant at the same time, and they were having, a lot of issues, and, I knew, thank the Lord, that I was blessed with a good pregnancy. But, so I had, a really good pregnancy for the most part the whole time. At one time, and I did work the whole time. I worked until, I believe, 2 days before I had Carys. But I only had one incident during the pregnancy. I had been working for, that whole week, and I had developed kind of like a gastroenteritis type, stomach virus type thing. But I was still going to work, and I just attributed it to kind of pregnancy. I was thinking, stuff is just being, I'm being sensitive to things. And so that day at work, I had not eaten anything because I was just so sick. Just anything would make me just feel like I was going to be sick. So I probably had dehydrated myself. And so I had tried a little piece of chicken, I believe it was, at lunch. But everything would make me sick, and I didn't know what was wrong, but I was still trying to work. But at lunchtime, I was sitting at my desk, and I probably had been sitting there. And by that time, I was probably like 29 weeks, or maybe, I think it was like 28, 29 weeks. So I was quite large. For when you're not used to a large belly right there, it's a little different. So I quite large by that time. And I was sitting at my desk, and how we work, we have like each doctor has their own pod. So it's like exam rooms and the nurse's desk out, and the doctor's office is off to the side. And so I was sitting at my desk, and I was the only nurse at that time for my doctor. He was actually a new doctor, so I was there. And thankfully, I had coworkers that were at their pod next to me. Because I was sitting there, and I probably had been sitting for too long. That's really all we can attribute it to. But I was sitting, and I'd probably been sitting there about 45 minutes. And I just felt so sick. I was sitting there, and I kept trying to, if you know me, I'm probably not the greatest at saying when something's wrong. I will try to fake it for a while. Oh, it's a curse, but I was sitting there, and I was like, I'm gonna pass out. I'm gonna pass out. And I was like, no, I'm gonna be fine. I'm going to be fine. It's gonna be okay. And when it started getting like black on the edges, I was like, I'm gonna pass out. Sitting here at my desk, and I'm pregnant. I cannot hit the floor, So it was closing in, like I felt it. And so I spoke to the lady at the other pod. I was like, I'm about to pass out. And thankfully, like, she heard me. But I just went straight down on my desk, like, just pass out. The weird thing was, I literally could not move a muscle. Like, I couldn't open my eyes. I could not move anything. It was insane. But I could hear them. Like, they ran over right when I said that, and I hit my desk. They ran over, they had me, and I was just like out. I was out. But I could not, like, I knew. They checked my sugar, or the glucose. They checked my blood pressure. It was all good. I mean, I normally have a low blood pressure, but everything was normal. And so they were like sitting there checking everything, and I could hear, like, I remember my glucose was 88. Like, I remember that. But I was just out, could not move a muscle. And so the doctor ran over, and he was checking me out, and everything was good. Finally, I opened my eyes, and I mean, everything was fine. I just was out, So they called my doctor, my OBGYN, and got me set up to go in just to be checked out. And so all that they can figure out that happened is maybe I was sitting so long, and the size that I was, that I kind of, my blood was kind of, what's the word? Like cutting off the circulation. And I just passed out from that. So that honestly was the only thing. I ended up staying overnight in the hospital for them to check out the baby and everything, and all of that was good. It was really good. There was really nothing. The only thing they did have to do, they had to give me fluid because I was so dehydrated and things like that. That's really what it boiled down to. I remember, I think I was like 34 weeks, maybe. I could have been 35, but for some reason I'm thinking it was more than 2 weeks before I had Carys. 34 to 35. I went, I was at that point going every week, or right at the time where I started going every week. And they checked me in the office, and I was dilated to like a 1. And at first baby, I don't know what my body's going to do or how it's going to be, and I was a nurse, but I'd never experienced that. So I really didn't know what to expect, So them telling me that I was dilated, I was like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do, But I was also miserable. So, if you're not used to, at that point, being active and having to be active, having that weight, all right here, at that point you're miserable. Even though it's all worth it, you're miserable. So I remember thinking, oh my goodness, I'm already dilated. What am I gonna do? So I kept just going to work. I kept doing everything that I was already doing, but every visit I was more dilated, and by I think 36 weeks I was like a 4. But I was only like, I think 50% of face. So I was, everything I'd read, I was like, what am I gonna do? And I was a 4, but I was still going to work. I would get off the elevator. At that point, my feet had started swelling, so I would try to lift them some at work and keep them elevated, but my feet were swelling. I would get off the elevator in the morning, and the front staff was like, why are you here? And I'm like, I'm not wasting my time before the baby. I'm going to wait until after I have this baby to use my sick time. So I was a little hard-headed, just a little, but so I was just pushing through. I was gonna go to work as long as I could to save my time, So I was miserable. I wanted it to be over, but then again, the fear of the unknown. You really don't know what's going on. So I, after that last visit, I believe it was the last visit, I was 36 and a half weeks, I think. He told me I was a 4, and I'd been a 4 for at least a week. Honestly, I think it was right at 2 weeks, but I know for sure a week. Because I was at church that Wednesday night. I had her on a Thursday. Yes. I'm almost positive. Yeah. Yeah, I went to church that Wednesday night. Because I think my pastor's wife was like, why are you here? I think they were scared that, like, my water was going to break everywhere or something. Which, it was possible, but... So, I went to church, and I was determined... I know this sounds horrible, but he had told me at the visit on Tuesday, he said, I'm going to see you back in my office on Thursday, unless I see you in the hospital before then. And my appointment was like 1 o'clock, I think, on Thursday. And I was so over it. I know most people go to like 40 weeks or 41 weeks, and more power to them. I really, I would have done anything for my baby, but I was so miserable. Oh my goodness. So at this point, I'd been reading all the wives' tales, all the, jump up and down on one foot. I would have done it, okay, at this point. But the one I had read, and I was like, I am not doing that. I am just not doing it. It was to take a teaspoon of castor oil. So, I'm telling off on myself. I shouldn't do this, but I went to church that night. And on my way home, Brian was like, okay, I think he had just heard me gripe so long how miserable I was. I had went to work Tuesday and then left and went to my doctor's appointment. Wednesday, I stayed home from work. And the whole day, I was at home just, like, not bored, but, like, trying to get ready. But I was like, I cannot be off of work for a week before this baby gets here. This is going to drive me insane, Looking back, that's probably not the best way to be, but that's how I was at that time. So I was like, I've got to have this baby. This is it, I stayed home Wednesday just because I was so miserable and my feet were swollen. And, my blood pressure was okay, but I was just so miserable. So Wednesday night after church, on the way home, I'd been telling Brian, I want to try castor oil just to see. Hey, everything else, people say it works, So, and before that, he had always been like, no, we don't need to try anything. We want to be careful. He's more the voice of reason. I'm kind of the free spirit sometimes. So, he was like, we don't need to try that, So, on the way home, he was like, do you want to stop and get some castor oil? And I was like, yes, let's try it. So I was like, they say it's horrible. But we went to Fred's, and they had some castor oil. It was a little bottle, and it said taste-free castor oil. So I was like, oh, that sounds good, you know. So we got that, and I got a thing of orange juice. So I went home, and I'm scared to death. I'm like, what am I doing to myself? You know, I don't even know if this is going to work. Well, I went home, put a little bit of orange juice in the cup, and put 1 tablespoon in the cup. I drank it, and I was like, that wasn't that bad. Wow, you know. So Brian goes, we go to bed, but I was just already, I had been hurting and having kind of, I guess, Braxton Hicks, or, you know, some contractions anyway, because I was just miserable. But so he goes to bed, and I stay up just because I'm hurting, like take a bath, trying to get rid of some of that achy feeling, you know, that the contractions will bring. And so I downloaded an app on my phone that will count the contractions. So I started having one about, I think it was like 11:30. I believe it was. It was kind of, I took the castor oil like 10. I think it was like 10. So it was about midnight, I think, that I'd have a pretty good one. I was like, oh, so I started counting it. I tried to go to sleep, and I would just get up. I'd be hurting, and I just kept doing different things. I'd get in the bathtub. I'd lay certain ways, and, you know, try to do different things. Well, about, I think like 3 o'clock, I was up, and I got in the bathtub again, and I started counting them, and I was like, I think this is for real, because it was just, it would come, and, you know, it wasn't like every minute or 2 minutes or 3, but it started being pretty consistent. You know, I could really count when they started, when they ended. I was like, you know, I think this is it. So about 3:45, I went in there, and I'd counted it for about an hour, and they were pretty consistent the whole hour. So I was like, oh, I think this is it, you know. Oh, yeah, you know. I went in there, and I tried to wake Brian up. Well, he is, for the most part, a heavy sleeper. So I went in there, and I was like, babe, we need to go to the hospital. And he was like, huh? Half asleep. He would wake up. And he was like, really? And he like rolled over and went back to sleep. So I was thinking, okay, I'll feel dumb if I like make a big deal out of this and it's nothing. So I'm gonna count a little bit longer and make sure this is for real before I wake him up again. Because I mean, he would have jumped up if he knew he was just out of it. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. So I counted for a whole nother hour. I was like, this is, because, a little backstory. My mother and my sister, my niece is 1 year older than Carys. She's my younger sister right after me, but she had a baby. And my mom and my sister both had all of their children natural, with no epidural, no nothing. So when I got pregnant, I was like, you know, I'm a little competitive, I'm not gonna lie. I was like, oh, I'm gonna do that too. I can do it. So when I went in, during all my visits, you know, I would tell Dr. Waterfallen, and I mean, he's old school. He's been in practice for probably 35, 40 years. He's very kind of well known in our area because he's delivered so many babies. I would tell him, I want to go natural without an epidural. And he literally, I don't know, because of my stature or what, he looked at me and he said, why would you want to do that? I was like, because my mom and my sister did, and I can do it. So he never would just be belligerent at all about it, but he just said, just promise me that you will be open-minded, that you will not just be totally against it. He said, when you get to the hospital, go ahead and sign that you're okay with it if you choose to get it. He said, I don't want us to get in a emergency type thing and you not have signed the paperwork and do all of that ahead of time. So So I promised that I would be open-minded. But in my mind, I was still dead set that I was going to do everything I could to have a natural birth with no epidural. Just because of my family, and they both said that they agreed with that way. So and it made sense to me. During my pregnancy, especially with the first one, I had looked at both sides. I had read every article I could find, and I was pretty well knowledgeable as far as what people said about both sides. So I was determined to do that. So when I woke Brian up the second time, after I had, so I guess that mindset of I want to do as much as I can natural, or go all the way natural, is why I wasn't so quick to run to the hospital, because I was trying to labor as much as I could at home, and get a lot of that behind me, because I said, wow, wouldn't that be awesome to get to the hospital and be like a 7, or, wouldn't that be great? Because I'm already a 4, surely I'll do that, So I waited for about an hour and counted again, and they were still consistent. So I was like, I think really that this is it. I really think this is it. So I went in there the second time, and by this time, it was probably 4:45, because I remember we left about 5. So it was about 4:45. I went in there, and I said, Brian, and I shook him a little harder than I did the first time. I was like, Brian, we need to go to the hospital. And he was like, why? He rolled over and kind of woke up that time. Why do we need to go to the hospital? I'm going to have to go to work. I was like, nope, we're going to the hospital because I'm in labor. And he was like, oh, okay. Well, while those hours I had been up, I had been getting everything packed, which I'd already had my bag kind of packed already, but I was putting everything by the front door. I had not finished her wreath for the door, which I ended up having a bad track record for that, but I had not finished her wreath for the door, so I took what I had done and everything I needed packed by the front door, and everything was ready. So when he got up, which it wasn't like an emergency, I was still having pretty hard contractions, but I didn't feel like we needed to rush. Like I said, I think I was trying to embrace the contractions and just, trying to go as far as I could without anything. So it was just kind of chilled. I mean, he was a little, let's hurry, but we got in the vehicle, driving to the hospital. We weren't in a panic, in a rush. He even stopped at a gas station and got some coffee. I had not been eating just because of, knowing that I was in labor and going to have a baby. I wasn't eating or drinking anything. But it was just very calm on the way to the hospital. There was nobody. I mean, it was literally 5 o'clock in the morning. There was really nobody on the road. 5 o'clock on a Thursday morning. The funny thing is, and this is just a sweet part of the story. Friends of ours from church, some of our best friends, we were pregnant together. She was 2 weeks ahead of me, I believe. So she was 39 weeks. She had really a hard pregnancy. It was just, she really had battled, having sickness the whole time. And so they were wanting her to have the baby at 39 weeks. At this point, I was 37 weeks and 1 day. So we were right at 2 weeks apart. She was already at the hospital. We were using the same hospital. And we knew, I wasn't trying to get there the same day as her, but we knew that they were actually already at the hospital there, ready to be induced the following morning. And so we were on the way to the hospital. We get there, and I'm like, I think I'm in labor. And they're like, okay, So they take me in a room, 37 weeks, 1 day. They ask, are you pregnant with a boy or a girl? And I was like, a girl. If I had said a boy, they probably have been a little more hesitant just at the 37 1 week, 1 day mark. But So they checked me, and I was like a 4.5, almost a 5. And so, okay, so get me in a gown. And so Brian, my husband, texted our friend's husband. And he said, man, we're down the hall. And our friend was like, no way. It was just so neat that we realized that our babies would be born on the same day. It was so neat and sweet. So we were like 3 doors down from our friends having a baby. That whole day, we go to the same church, same pastor, everything. It was awesome. So we get there, they get me set up, and I'm dead set. I'm gonna do this. So the nurse, I labored for quite a while. The doctor came in, and by then I had called my mom and sister in Mississippi. They all of my family live in Mississippi, so it was going to be a 6-hour drive for them, which we knew that if they didn't make it, it'd be okay. But I knew I didn't want them coming like a week ahead of time, just sitting around waiting. So, so we had called them, and they were kind of on their way at that point. So, it was about, I think, like 8 o'clock that, it might have been a little later than that. By then, everybody's family was there, our friends and ours. Everybody was so excited. Well, all the men decided to go down to have breakfast. Well, okay, my doctor had come in to try to break my water. Y'all, you just gotta know me. I was terrified. I was more terrified of that, I think, than anything. And I think I was hoping that my water would break on its own, which it had not at that point. So he comes in, and y'all, that thing that they use to break your water, oh my goodness, it's like I know this is a positive birth story, but I'm just gonna be real. If you have not had a child, that thing is scary looking. It's like a wood thing with a little like hook looking thing. It was scary. So he would try to break my water, which thankfully he had been my OBGYN for 2 or 3 years for sure at that point. So every time he would try to break my water, I would like try to grab it, and he was like, Amanda, really? He was, thankfully we had a good rapport at that point with each other. And I was like, that looks horrible, So he said, okay, I'm gonna let you rest a little bit. I'll be back in about an hour or so, and I'm gonna break your water at that time if it's not broken. We've got to do this. So I was like, okay. So Brian said, well, if he's not gonna be back for a little while, and at this point I had not had an epidural or anything, he said at this point, if he's not going to be back for a while, I'll go eat breakfast with my friend's husband and his dad, and, we'll go eat in the cafeteria. So I was like, sure. Well, Brian literally had not walked out 2 minutes, and my doctor comes back in. He was like, no, you know what? We need to break your water now. We need to do it. Well, I didn't think a thing about it. Brian's not going to, he doesn't care about missing this. I mean, really, water breaking, So he ended up breaking my water. He did it once, and he actually, y'all, this is so funny, but he had me sit on my hands. So I wouldn't try to grab the thing because I was so antsy, I guess you could say. So he broke it, and at first he wasn't sure if he did, but he was like, I think I did. I really think, but it hadn't gushed out. He said, I really think that was, strong enough to do it. So I went to get up in the bed, kind of push myself up, and it went everywhere. So I was like, oh, wow, Well, my father-in-law, the doctor had not left very long at all. My father-in-law came in, and I told him my water broke. My doctor broke my water. And my father-in-law and my mother-in-law had came in. Well, I said, well, Brian's down in the cafeteria. So my father-in-law went down there. Well, he's just sharing. Her water broke. The doctor came in, broke her water. Brian comes running up there. He was like, babe, why didn't you call me? I missed it. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I didn't know that was, but he was excited too. He was, we were first time parents, and everything was new. So it was neat. And definitely when you have a baby with the right one, you fall more in love with them when you see how much they love like your children, and just the process of them being involved, that makes you fall more in love with them. It does. Word to the wise if you're not married yet. So after that, I was thinking, I had not had an epidural yet. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to be an 8 in no time. I'm having this baby. I went like an hour or so, and I was like, by then I was, this whole time, like I said, I can be kind of bad at faking it till I make it sometimes. The whole time I was laughing and talking, and I think some of that was, if I really was serious about going the whole way, I should have focused and like relaxed my body and really focused on the contraction and all of that. But I was trying to laugh and just have a good old time with everybody. Well, the nurse came in an hour or so later, and she checked me again. I was still a 5. I felt so defeated. I just knew I was going to be farther along. And looking back, I probably should have said, no, let's hold off. But I'm trying to think what time it was. I honestly think by then it was probably like 12:30 or so. And I was just so tired. I'd been having contractions all night and then all morning into the noon time. And really my body, I was just tired. I really was. Which anybody that has labored knows after a while it is a little tiring. So I think she just caught me at the right time for me to consider it. I was so tired and I was so defeated feeling at that moment. She said she was a wonderful nurse. Like, when I went in the second time to have my son, I was hoping that I would have the same one because she was just so good. She said, Amanda, I bet because she said, you're so tense. She said, when you have the contractions, you really need to relax. She said, you're so tense. I bet if we got you an epidural, you would relax right away and you'd be ready to push in no time. So I think I was just so tired. I was like, okay, let's do it. Let's try it, Which, like I said, I had already signed everything when we got there, just in case. So I said, let's do it. And I was scared, of course, but I mean, those contractions are pretty tough. Like I said, it's worth it though. So I got, I was like psyching myself up. Okay, I'm gonna do this because this hurts. It does hurt. So the anesthesiologist, oh my goodness, can't talk. He comes in and the floor was packed. Like literally, I think everybody was having their babies that day. And he was like, I've been to every room on this hall. He said, everybody's in labor right now, So he was very good. And he had Brian hold me while he gave the epidural, which we learned the second time. Normally they shouldn't let husbands hold the wife because of what happened next. Brian held me, and he said even like seeing the needle, because it's pretty big. I'm not gonna lie, being a nurse, I know what gauge. It's pretty big, but when you're having contractions, the pain of that was absolutely nothing. Like I don't even think of it, honestly. So he's kind of bear hugging me, and I've got my back kind of braced, put the epidural in, and I felt it, sure, but like I said, nothing that I had kind of prepared myself mentally for. I would do it again, and I did it again with my son. but it was not bad at all. And and I hate to sound just like, I don't know, like a brat, but it literally, after having contractions that long and just being so tired, the feeling like when like the epidural took effect and like I couldn't feel my legs at that moment, just when it was taking effect, I was like, oh, this is wonderful. I was like, oh, you're my new best friend. You know, it was just a rest. It was a kind of a relief. So the nurse, she got me all prepped, you know, and relaxed again in my bed. And so she came back probably, oh, I forgot the funny part. So the guy gets done with the epidural, and Brian like lets go, and he's just standing there. Well, I'm kind of not being selfish, but I'm like, oh, I survived this. I did good, you know. I made it. The nurse looks up and she's like, sir, are you okay? Sir, sir, you are really white. I am going to need you to lay on that couch and put your head above your feet above your head. And I looked up and he's so white. It was hilarious. Now it's hilarious. It wasn't then. I was like, really? You're going to pass out? I'm the one that got the epidural. You know? So they have him on a couch with his feet above his head, trying to regain some composure. And so I get settled back in my bed, and not long. She was born at 4:57. I'm almost positive it was 4:57. It was maybe 4:27 or 4:25. Actually, I think I'm getting confused with my son. They were both born right at the same time. So they checked me not long after that, and she was like, you are a 10. You are ready to push. And I was like, oh, this is so wonderful, you know. And I'm thinking, because I mean, you hear stories and you read books and you know, okay, you know, I'm ready to push 3 or 4 pushes. This baby's going to be out, you know. Oh, she's about to be born. Oh, you know. Nope. So I had heard, you know, numerous times, if you have an epidural, you're not going to be able to feel any of the contractions. You're just not going to feel anything. In my case, and I don't know if it's different for anybody else, but I actually could feel when I needed to push. I could feel all of that, but I just couldn't feel any pain. So that was a win-win for me. You know, I was very happy for that. But I started pushing with the nurse, and, you know, and the first time or two, I was thinking, oh, the baby's going to be out in a minute. And then I started realizing, man, I've been pushing a long time. I ended up pushing about an hour and 15 minutes, I believe. I'd have to double check that with Brian, because he's the facts man of our family. But I pushed over an hour. And then finally, by then the doctor came in, and he was like, we're just having a little trouble getting her out, which, you know, her head had already come down, and there wasn't anything wrong with my pelvis, really, you know, anything that was impeding it, but she just wasn't coming out. And I think some of that had to do just with, I'm more on the petite side. And so he finally came in, and he broached the subject with me and Brian. He was like, I do have like a vacuum type device that would help. He said it's not going to really do anything, but it might cut about 20 minutes of pushing off, you know, to get her out, you know, safely. You know, he said it won't affect her, but it will get her out, you know, maybe a little quicker for you, because he knew I was tired. Even with an epidural, not feeling the actual pain, I was still pushing really, you know, hard. And it's trying on your body. I mean, it's still physical effort. Either way, you know, if you have an epidural or don't, it is still really trying on your body. So at that point, we agreed. I was like, and I trust his judgment because he has delivered so many babies. I did trust him, and I still do. So he used the vacuum, and I think I was just I was so tired at this point. It was, like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I had been going since, the night prior. I was just tired. So, and not saying my story is any worse than anybody else's or that I was more tired. Labor is a process. It's a difficult process, but it's like I'll say over and over, it's worth it. So he used the vacuum. We got her out. They laid her on me. I remember saying, "Wow, she's beautiful." Like kind of out of it, honestly. Not like I was coherent. I knew what was going on, but I was just tired. Not like a drugged up, out of it. So, and I was curious as far as if you've ever had a disability yourself, as far as like on my right hand, I only have 4.5 fingers. And just as a developmental, no accident. I was just born that way. So I was worried about that. I wanted to know that she was perfect as far as fingers, toes. I was a little worried about that just because. And so she was perfect. They said everything was great. So they took her to the side and we're doing everything, weighing her and everything. Everything was great. I heard her cry. She was good. Well, he started sewing me up, and he did say there was quite a bit of damage, just a lot. I'm going to have to do a lot of stitches. Well, I'd had an epidural, so I wasn't worried about him sewing me up. I was fine. Hey, I'm not going to be able to feel any of that, because that was my main concern, the baby coming out, and if I needed any stitches, I was worried about that pain. That was the problem. The main source of my worry at that point. And so he starts sewing me up, and I'd been fine during the contractions. I wasn't like saying, "Oh, I'm hurting." I was fine. And Brian was right next to me, here, and I started like just grabbing Brian's shirt. I'm trying to be strong. Hey, the worst part's over. Why am I hurting? And I was hurting so bad. And the doctor was like, "Amanda, you are bleeding." And he knew I'm already anemic, really bad. I've always been really anemic. And he was like, "Amanda, you're losing a lot of blood. I need you to sit still. I've got to sew you up. You're gonna bleed out more than I want you to. You've got, so I'm trying. And I'm literally about to rip Brian's shirt off. I'm hurting so bad, and I'm grabbing his hand, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, like I didn't think about this. This is worse than what I just did, And so finally he was like, "Amanda, you are losing a lot of blood. I have to sew you up, and it's a lot. I have to." Well, so he was like, "I'm going to have to give you more medicine." And I was like, "Please," because they had given me a little bit when I first started moving. He had said, "Give her a little bit, something through the IV, just to help her calm down." Well, it didn't work. I was still just like, oh, I was grabbing. And poor Brian, he's like, "Man, you already had the baby." Like, he didn't say that. But, I think he was probably like, "Man, you're about to break my hand, But he was just, holding my hand, being so sweet. But, so finally, the doctor, he's like, "Amanda, I got to give you more, and it might knock you out." He said, "I have to do this. It's a lot of work." I think I ended up having, he said like 20 stitches, 20 or so, through the whole thing. So, they gave me medicine, and I literally passed out. Girl, we have pictures. Everybody met Carys. Oh, not everybody. I say that. My in-laws, my mom, They all, I think, met Carys before I did, besides that moment of her on my chest, because I was out. That medicine, I was out until later that night. And they actually have a picture, and if I can find it from Brian, I'll put it here. It's horrible, by the way. But Brian is behind me holding Carys, and I'm like, it's horrible. But of course, the nurse wanted a picture of us, since I was looking all beautiful and stuff. So that is how my day ended. Most of that, I was out. But when I did wake up, I felt good. I ate so much. If y'all know me, after that, because I had been a good 24 hours without food, so I was so hungry, and ate, and it was a good experience. We had quite a bit of people there, quite a bit, in there. My friend ended up having her baby about 45 minutes apart, and so the girls are still just really close today. We call them birthday sisters, and it's just good memories of having them so close. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else I missed after that. No, she did so good. She was 6 pounds 4 ounces, and she ended up, most babies will always lose weight, like on their, before they leave the hospital, they lose weight, and they want to follow back up with them in the pediatrician's office shortly, like 5 days max, to make sure that they're getting back to their birth weight. My child, she had actually gained an ounce from her birth weight when we left the hospital in a day and a half. We came home on Saturday. She'd gained an ounce from her birth weight. So she never had that problem. My pediatrician, she was like, that never happens. I was like, yes, my girl. She's my girl. But so it was just a great, I feel like it's our story, of course, and there's good and there's bad, but it was a good experience for us. We feel very blessed that everything went the way it did, even the bad things, hey, it went great, and I was not traumatized by birth. I felt after that, I was like, I can do this again. Even the pain, things, that I went through, being miserable, I was like, you know what, this is doable, So if you are pregnant or wanting to have children, you totally can do it. I believe in you. If you're new to the channel, I would love for you to subscribe. Thank you for watching this very long video. I hope it was somewhat entertaining or informative. I don't know if it was that, but I hope you all have a great day. Thank you for watching.